Welcome to The Word Revealed with David Palmer and Scott Burns, where we talk about everything Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Let's join the conversation.
Welcome back to The Word Revealed. I'm David Palmer with my fellow lover of Christ in the book of Acts, Scott Burns. How have you held yourself in suspense from the last episode?
I just continued to stare at your big books here and wondering what else we're going to discover today.
Okay. We had a robust conversation last episode.
Yeah, and we're in the middle of a very violent, confusing moment. Paul has been drug out of the temple. They're seeking to kill him. There's massive confusion.
Yeah.
And we're going to see that confusion grow in the next several verses.
We are, and this, I'm glad you emphasized that. We need to picture this as a crowded scene with thousands and thousands of people, and all of a sudden there's confusion, loud voices, shouting, the church just closed, what's happening? And he's physically dragged out. Like, get this guy out of here who's defiled the sanctuary. Enter the Roman military.
Yeah. So the Roman military kind of jumps in, and basically that's God's means of sparing Paul in this moment.
It's kind of like Jonah, like the whale is sent to save you.
Yeah.
Or the big fish, really. Yeah. Doesn't say whale. But so why is the Roman military going to the Feast of Pentecost? So,
I was going to ask you that.
Okay. So the Roman governors, they live in Caesarea. That's where they take over Herod's like seaside estate. Pontius Pilate was the 5th Roman governor. Now we're here. We have Felix, who is the Roman governor at the time. And Felix himself was a former slave, and he was a freedman, and the word Felix in Latin means happy. So this guy's Mr. Happy. The ancient sources say he was a tyrant, though, and so we're gonna catch up with him later. But he's the Roman governor of Judea. He's one step below the regional leader who is called the legate of Syria. So the guy in charge of the whole province is the Roman legate. The guy in charge of the area of Judea is in Latin is the procurator. So he's the procurator, and he has at his disposal Roman troops. There are, depending on the precise moment, like 1 to 3 Roman legions in the area, but he has like a local police force, and he uses that to monitor, put down rebellions. It's kind of like his police force that's at his discretion. Though he lives in Caesarea, they know, the Roman governors figure out that it's like 3 times a year when there's a lot of Judeans together. And what are those big times? They're the 3 big pilgrimage festivals. So Passover, and what's the topic that we're all celebrating at Passover?
God sparing his people.
He's sparing his people, and he's also rescuing us from
slavery,
enslavement. So Passover is a good time to recall foreigners go down, we get lifted up. Okay, so
right.
Okay,
yeah.
So Pentecost is on the same theme. We're freed. We go to Mount Sinai. We get God's law. We're not living by anyone else. So Pentecost is a good time for a revolution too. Tabernacles, celebrating the ingathering of the nations when the rest of the world abandons their idolatry and lives for God. Not only theologically, the themes of God's rescue, exaltation, but it's a high-energy moment. So the governors, they leave Caesarea during the pilgrimage festivals. And again, I mentioned Josephus just because Josephus is so unique as a source. He was there, he lived there, and he wrote his books for people like us who weren't there. And we just don't have any source quite like that. So I'm not giving like bias to Josephus. It's just that the fact that we have him. And that's why I made my kids take an oath that one of the 5 books they would read was Josephus' Jewish War. So 7 volumes. And I decided to lead by example, so it was the summer read at our house one summer. So I read all 7 volumes out loud in the porch one whole summer. And I got to just tell you, brother, it was riveting. It was so. The rest of the 4 books are on their own, but I thought I'm going to read the first one. But Josephus also tells us that the Roman troops are stationed around the perimeter of the temple complex, and specifically, Herod he redid the temple sanctuary, but he expanded the Temple Mount greatly with these large retaining walls, and then he put these covered colonnaded structures around the edges, and these are massive structures. And Josephus tells us that there were Roman troops standing on the top of these porticos, and in the northwest corner of the Temple Mount area is a large military barracks that was called the Antonia Fortress, so named after Mark Antony. So there's a military base basically attached to the corner of the Temple Mount. So that's why the Roman soldiers, they're there. There's a base of them. There's a base camp attached. They're there for the pilgrimage crowd.
Their job is to keep things quiet.
Right. They don't want things getting out of hand. All of a sudden, looks like things are out of hand. Yeah. Okay. So the Tribune, who was probably in the Antonia Fortress, he hears the city's in confusion, so he mobilizes the soldiers. He mobilizes the centurions, who are like the backbone of the Roman legion, and they ran down to them. So that's even just like, that's a small detail of like the reliability of the Bible, though. Like, that's the right word. They gotta run down. They've got to go down.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Bible is. We're counting on the fact that the Bible says Jesus was raised from the dead, right? We're dependent on that textual testimony. So it strengthens my faith when just even the geographical terms are accurate.
Amen.
So they run down.
That's verse 32.
Yeah, and they stop the beating. So Paul's being beaten, probably going to be beaten to death.
Yeah.
And they stop that. They save his life, and then they put him in chains.
And they arrest him.
So that's right.
Put him in chains. Verse 33.
Mm-hmm. And then they ask,
Who are you?
Who are you and what you're doing?
Yeah.
Right. So,
and then people start shouting, and some are saying one thing, and some are saying another. That's verse 34.
Right.
So he realizes, man, I can't figure anything out in this moment from the uproar of the crowd. So he orders for Paul to be brought into the barracks.
And that's what he's describing, that he's bringing him inside the Antonia Fortress. So once he goes inside the fortress, like not only the physical protection of the fortress, it had 4 towers. I mean, it's set apart, but it's also it's an immediate. This is where ritual purity works in your favor in this moment. The people who have become ritually purified to be in the sanctuary, they can't go into the reverse of that is true.
Yeah,
they're not going to defile themselves going backwards ritually. So all of a sudden he's created a little physical space and some ritual space. So he gets to the steps and actually the soldiers, like, they're still trying to beat him, and they carry him physically. The crowd's shouting, "Away with him," which Luke records, and I think for the attentive reader, that's supposed to recall the gospel scene. That's the same language for "away with him," said of Jesus by the crowds. So I think we're supposed to get that association, just like Stephen voices the words of Jesus from the cross to the crowds. It's just super moving. Yeah. So let's keep going. What happens next?
Chapter 21, verse 37. Paul was about to be brought into the barracks, and he asked the tribune, "May I say something to you?" And he says, "Do you know Greek?"
Yeah. So all of a sudden, this Jewish guy that everybody's trying to beat up and kill, and this guy, the tribune, in Greek, his office is called the Heliarch, which is like a ruler of 1,000. In the ESV translation, it's like, it sounds so polite, like, doesn't it? Like, here's a riot going on all around. In translation, it sounds like Paul all of a sudden says, "May I say something to you?" I mean, in the original text, it says, "Is it permitted?" That would be a better translation. He's asking, like,
"Can I say something?"
Yeah, can I say something? Is it lawful for me to speak something to you? And what startles the tribune
is he speaks to him in Greek. And so, the eastern side of the empire is Greek-speaking. Roman officials who served in the East would need to know Greek to function. And Greek was like the global language, really, of the day. He's surprised that Paul's proficient in Greek. He doesn't expect that. So what does he do? He makes an assumption then. He tries to locate Paul, and he has a thought. Okay? He's like, "Rome Tribune, I have a thought." And he says, "Are you the Egyptian?" So we just pause for just a second. Why would he go to Egypt? And he would go to Egypt because Egypt, for hundreds of years since the conquest of Alexandria, has been a Greek-speaking area. So Alexandria is the second largest city in the Roman Empire. It's close by. Philo tells us that of the 5 main districts of the city of Alexandria, that 2 of them were predominantly Jewish. So you have a large number of Greek-speaking Jews who are from Egypt. So when we think of Egypt, we tend to think, modern times, you think of Arabic-speaking people. In deep antiquity, you think of hieroglyphs and Egyptian. But in the intertestamental period, in the New Testament environment, if you're like, here's a Jewish guy who speaks Greek, he's probably Egyptian. And we know them as the Ptolemaic, rulers. So, quick side note, like, it's the fact that Greek is spoken in Egypt that actually gives the benefit of deciphering hieroglyphs, because the Rosetta Stone is the trilingual inscription that is in hieroglyphs that no one could read, Demotic Egyptian script, and in Greek. That's where these big books come in handy.
Yeah, good. Most viewed object in the British Museum.
Yeah.
Right. So, but anyway, so that's why he thinks he's an Egyptian. But then this is great. Not so great, but it takes us into this world that Paul's in, right? He's in a violent world. We tend to think our world is violent and divided, and that's part of fallen humanity.
Yeah.
But he says, he's like, the Roman tribune's like, okay, there's this guy, there's a famous Egyptian guy that is a known dangerous. He's like, this guy, did I just catch, like, number 1 on the FBI's most wanted list? That's what he thinks. He thinks, are you the Egyptian who recently stirred up a revolt and led 4,000 men of the assassins out into the wilderness? Are you that guy?
Yeah.
And we're like, who's that guy? So again, we got to go to Josephus. So can I read you that's one of my big books.
All right, here we go.
Okay, here we go. So this is Josephus, Jewish War, Book 2. paragraph 61. He says, a great blow was inflicted on the Jews by the Egyptian false prophet. This man, this is Josephus' perspective, a charlatan, had gained for himself the reputation of a prophet. He had collected, this is Josephus, 30,000 dupes and led them by a circuitous route from the wilderness to the rise called the Mount of Olives. And from there, he was ready to force an entry into Jerusalem after overpowering the Roman garrison and assume control of the people. However, Felix anticipated his attempt and met him with Roman heavy infantry, and the outcome of the ensuing clash was that the Egyptian fled with a handful of men while most of his followers were killed or captured. So this guy, this is fascinating.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What first strikes you about that?
I mean, just the scene of he thinks he's caught this guy.
Yeah.
He's just kind of jumped to a conclusion as well.
Yeah.
There's this massive riot happening. Pull this guy out. He speaks a language I'm not expecting him to speak. I must have the guy.
I just captured a big reward. He's probably already scripting his like congratulations speech. He's probably thinking I'm just going to be fast track promoted. It also opens up like another layer of a window into the world of the apostles, just to picture like what was this guy thinking? This guy went into the wilderness and gathered thousands of people around him, and by a circuitous route in the wilderness came up to the Mount of Olives, prepared to force his way into the city. So this guy is trying to like symbolically do a second Exodus. He's picking up that imagery. What's also fascinating is that Luke uses the translation I have says men of the assassins. The Greek text here in Luke in Acts 21:38, it says that did you lead this, the men of the Sicari is the word that's used here. Sicari is the Latin plural. Sicarius is a dagger. So the Sicari are they're dagger-bearing guys, and they appear as the extreme edge of the zealot movement in Second Temple Judaism. These are the guys who they want no king but God, and they're ready to kill you for it. So they
with a dagger in the back.
With a dagger in the back or in the side, and there are several like high-profile assassinations. So these guys are not contract assassins; they are self-appointed God assassins of the bad guys. Some of the worst guys from their point of view are fellow Jews who have compromised with the current ruling power, and they stab them in the back, and guys just like drop dead in the sanctuary, in the temple courts. So this guy's associated with the zealot movement, and they go, and he leads them to the Mount of Olives, and we mentioned before the Roman officials are in Jerusalem to put down exactly this kind of thing. Why did he take him to the Mount of Olives? Because in Zechariah, you've got this eschatological imagery of like redemption coming from the Mount of Olives. So, side note to the Gospels, when we see Jesus like processing into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday on a donkey, he's invoking Zechariah, but he's not coming with a sword or a dagger. Mm-hmm. And he is invoking that image of the true legitimate king comes in peace in Zechariah and removes the implements of war. So you got two really different visions of redemption in the Gospels and here.
Yeah.
And one of those is true. And Jesus says, those who wield the sword, they're going to perish by the sword. And you also see that moment in the Gospels where Peter's like, this is going bad, I'm pulling out my dagger. Not that he was necessarily associated with the zealot group, but he acts in a zealot manner, and Jesus is like, that's not my way.
Yeah.
But the Roman official thinks, I just had a big score.
Yeah.
And have you ever had a moment where you thought, I got it, and it turned out you didn't?
Not this kind of a moment.
No, okay. But this guy thinks, I just became famous, you know?
Yeah.
And it turned out he didn't.
Right.
So
Paul says, I'm a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no obscure city. And then he says, can I speak to the people?
And that's your great insight from the previous episode. That shows you what Paul really wants. He doesn't want... That's just so moving, isn't it?
Yeah, he wants to speak to the people that were literally trying to beat him to death.
Right.
I mean, I would probably see like, hey, can you move me like further away from this group?
Right. Yeah.
But he wants to address them.
And how moving is that he is speaking respectfully to this Roman military commander, and he wants to reach the Roman military commander too. And he's just like, this guy who's put him in chains, he's like, can I talk to you for a minute? So he says, I'm not leading a violent revolution. Just think of that. He's just telling the guy, I'm not here to try to kill you, and I'm not here to try to kill these people, but I'm here to share the gospel of Christ. Will you give me permission to speak? And the Roman Chiliarch, the Heliarch, ruler of 1,000, he says, you got my permission.
Yeah, he says, go for it.
So we got to picture Paul then stepping out of the Antonia fortress on the top of these surrounding porticos, and from there, he's got up to 200,000 people standing on the Temple Mount below him. And he makes a gesture with his hand. People quiet down. And then he launches into his testimony in Hebrew. And that's going to have to be our next episode. What's he say?
Yeah.
So
sorry to have to end it now, but we'll pick it up next episode.
All right. Thanks for joining us. So much to take to heart and learn and explore. God's Word is awesome. We both think that.
Yep.
Great to be with everyone. Share these episodes and continue to join us. Thanks for giving us your time and attention on the Word Revealed. Great to be with you, and look forward to the next episode.
Good to be with you, David, and good to be with all of you as well.
Thank you for joining Dr. David Palmer, Senior Pastor at Kenwood Baptist Church in Cincinnati, and Scott Burns, Associate Pastor. Meet us here next time for another conversation on the Bible.